Thank you very much for that. And good afternoon again, and welcome to the 2021 Nollywood in Hollywood. This is day 2, our final day. My name is Ose Oyamedan. I am the founder and co-presenter alongside the American Cinematheque and USC School of Cinematic Arts of this great event. I want to thank all those who joined us yesterday for the event from all over the world. And we're welcoming those who are joining us today and those who are returning. Today we have the second of the 2 films for selections this year, Eyimofe, and it's a brilliant film. And I will now introduce Alex Ago, the Director of Programming at the University of Southern California, to take it from here. Alex?
Hi, Ose. Thank you so much. I am very excited to present this film today, and I want to just tell you a little bit about this film, Eyimofe, This Is My Desire, which is offered to us courtesy of Janus Films. I don't normally read descriptions of movies right before I screen them, but this film is very special, and it's very different from what we traditionally associate with Nollywood. And so as a very unique selection for Nigerian cinema, I thought I would just tell you a little bit about it from its own description. A triumph at the 2020 Berlin Film Festival, the revelatory debut feature from co-directors and twin brothers Arie and Chuko Esiri is a heartrending and hopeful portrait of everyday human endurance in Lagos, Nigeria. Shot on richly textured 16mm film and infused with the spirit of neorealism, Eyimofe traces the journeys of 2 distantly connected strangers, Mofe, an electrician dealing with the fallout of a family tragedy, and Rosa, a hairdresser supporting her pregnant teenage sister, as they each pursue their dream of starting a new life in Europe while bumping up against the harsh economic realities of a world in which every interaction is a transaction. The film will be followed by a discussion with co-director Arie Esiri and producer Melissa Adeyemo. The film runs 116 minutes, and we're going to run it here directly in the webinar. And of course, as usual, please put your questions directly into the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we'll call on you as soon as we move on from the moderated portion of the discussion. It's been such a great pleasure to run this Nollywood and Hollywood showcase for its 4th edition with Gwen Diglees from the American Cinematheque and Ose Oyamendan from O2A Media. And I really am so grateful for everyone attending today. I hope that you will find this film as powerful and moving as I did, and will join us for the Q&A to follow. Thank you all so much.
So I just checked in. Hopefully he'll get back to me soon. But yeah.
Well, so Melissa, I'd be happy to get started, and then we can always fold in Arie when he gets here.
Yeah, of course.
So for me, this is such an incredibly powerful film, and such a very different film to see in terms of what we've come to think of as Nigerian cinema. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious also because the directors come from film school in the U.S. So sort of bringing that training and then going and making a film in Nigeria. I'm curious how that plays into a little bit of the aesthetic as being a little different from what we think of as Nollywood cinema. When you got involved with them, what were the conversations that you had about like how this film was going to be different from what we're used to seeing?
I think the first thing is, because I think a lot of people make this mistake of that we were going to do something different. Mm-hmm. I don't think we came out trying to do something different out of the gate, or not in that way where we were trying to singularly distinguish ourselves from Nollywood, because I don't think that. I also think that there were a number of films which for various reasons may have not been a part of the zeitgeist in the same way, but also differed from Nollywood. One thing the boys talk about a lot, and I actually tend to agree with them after doing a number of these for over a year and a half, it is that they think about their film as being part of the Nigerian film industry, but not necessarily being a part of Nollywood, like Nollywood being more of a genre of film.
Sure, sure.
And I tend to agree with that only because of what, I wouldn't say what has come out of Nollywood, but like the style of like filmmaking, to be more specific. And so I think that when we were talking about making this film, one, it starts with the script, and what the boys were trying to do. And we focused on that. And I think that in that vision, that differed from the kind of normative fare that you see coming out of the Nigerian film industry, and or more specifically Nollywood. But I don't think we actually set out to say, hey, we're different. Like I think that is a hubris that we didn't really come at this with. And I think to a certain extent that might be why we've been so successful. Anyway.
I think in the in my experience with Nollywood, which is admittedly very small, but has at least been very I think active and interested over the years, is that we've seen a lot of now quite glossy genre films,
yes,
thrillers, comedies, romantic comedies, action films that are now very with very slick production values, that are that have a lot of music and a lot of fast editing, and very much
deep color edits.
Yeah,
and like
exactly. That are very very entertaining commercial films.
Yeah.
And you also have films that, and then maybe just going back a little further, that are maybe a little bit more sort of like of like a more mythological, in sort of like telling stories about like smaller communities, but not necessarily telling the story of like the average everyday working class in Lagos. Like,
Yeah.
I feel is a story that has been underrepresented in contemporary Nigerian cinema.
Yeah.
And so that's where I feel like this kind of story is different. And maybe the
True. That's true. That I think was something that was very specific to what Chuko in writing it and Arie in directing it were looking to do, was tell the everyday life of tell the more specific kind of day-to-day life of the everyday man in Nigeria. I think the glossy films that we see a lot of the time were reaction in a lot of ways, of saying like, listen, we are not the ideas that people put on us. And so I think some of the glossy films that have come up in the last 5 to 10 years were really about controlling the narrative of what Nigerians can be and what many Nigerians are. And so that's where that came from, that kind of genre. It was a reaction, if you will. And then also, like, we see the success of, like, say, Spanish telenovelas and things like that. And I think that also comes from this idea of our industry was very much built by producers. And so at the end of the day, I think that Nigerian film producers and American film producers are very much in line in thinking about. American film producers are a little bit more, creative producers are a little bit more balanced in thinking about both creating like something that's artistic and also the bottom line. Whereas I think Nigerian film producers traditionally have been more kind of making something that's entertaining and visually captivating and the bottom line. But both have been kind of focused on that. To answer your question though, in terms of focusing on the everyday man, I think that Arie, well, actually, this starts with Chuko, and it starts with a number of the things that he reads and or wanted to see. Like this all started with the idea that we oftentimes see Nigerians and Africans leaving their home countries, but nobody ever explores why or even what those home countries look like. So I think it started with that first. Why are people leaving everything they know and love to go to another country? And so focusing, it's almost this, if there was anything we were specific about, is kind of doing this kind of not anti-immigration story, but an emigrating journey that never leaves the home country, really getting to the heart of why people feel like they need to leave for greener pastures and what they go through to get those greener pastures. And so Chuko was very kind of focused on that. And he really started this story. It's actually the treatment, I think, for what he used to get himself into film school. So he worked on it for a number of years. And yeah.
Did it start off being these two stories? Because I was going to say that's another very unique component of the film, is that it's a sort of diptych. It's telling two stories that aren't exactly interwoven, even though there are moments of overlap throughout, especially in the second half, but they are two sequential stories.
So no, actually. Chuko was in, and I know this because I literally was talking to him on another Zoom panel yesterday, or talking with him. He actually, it did not start as a diptych. It started as a singular story about Mofe. And the Rosa character was tangential. Actually, through USC, there was the Gina Davis study on women in film. Mm-hmm. And through that study, somebody had brought that study to his film and producing class at Tisch. And through that study, he learned, like, they had talked about how women are kind of marginalized in films. And he had realized a number of the things that, and like they're only really, women don't really have their own character arcs, but are in service of the male characters. And so are characters that are in service of the male characters and their own kind of like their own bigger story arcs. And he realized in doing that, in telling this particular story, he was very guilty of the things that came up in that study. And so he went about kind of like slowly and organically changing it and making her character bigger and bigger until it became a diptych. And then he went back out into the world, both being a prolific reader and a prolific kind of watcher of cinema and world cinema. He went back out and was like, okay, where have I seen this successfully being done? And that's essentially, he used those models to say, okay, making this a diptych can be done, and how can I do it? And he used those to kind of do it. Yeah.
I'm curious. Once you, at what point in all of this did you come on board? Because
so I actually, so it's a funny story because I came on board really when in one of the final drafts of the script. Yeah. And I met Chuko in a class, a film class at NYU. I was getting my MBA, but doing basically everything I could to try and like back end into an MFA while not paying for it at Tisch. And I was we shared a class and we basically actually got into a fight in the class. Like, and it was very much about like this, like the types of films that you could make in Nigeria. And I had worked at Iroko TV for 2 years. Mm-hmm. And the one thing I knew was that there was a level of talent at Nigeria that people weren't tapping into. And I felt like there was going to be this artistic movement based on just who was coming to me and what they were trying to do. Like the level of innovation of a lot of the creatives on ground was just at an all-time high. And so I was very bullish on like, you can make this certain type of film in Nigeria and I'm going to do it. Little did I know, God has a sense of humor. So little did I know I was going to be with this dude who I was arguing about it in front of this entire class. Fast forward, I was doing a short film called Still Water Runs Deep that premiered at a Freef in Lagos, Nigeria, and was playing at Lekki Mall. And I'm walking through Lekki Mall and I see him again. And he and I just reconnected based on that. He came to see the film, saw like, you know, a film that he felt like was very much in line with where he was trying to go and the stories he was trying to tell. And just, we went from there. I literally read the script and was like, I'm in. It was December of 2017. And by November of 2018, we had a film in the can.
I mean, that sounds like fate. I mean, how I love that. Um, so,
Thanks.
I mean, I wonder how many great partnerships must start that way too. Like, there needs to be the ability to challenge each other, and knowing that that's how it starts is great.
We definitely challenge each other. Probably me. Chuko and I probably like go back and forth a lot more than me and Arie. But yeah, definitely.
So the film is shot on 16 millimeter, and it does feel very much like, that there aren't sets per se. Like that this is the real like environment, of where everywhere that they work. I'm sure that there's plenty of spaces in there that aren't necessarily being staged per se. So tell us a little bit about working in that environment. Like, how much of this world is just the film team actually going in with some cameras and some actors and trying to represent the authentic world in which those characters would live in, versus what you're staging in like extras and building things for the for the screen. Nothing is built.
There is no building for
Yeah.
anything.
No, I mean, that's the authenticity is unmistakable in this film.
Yeah, no. I totally get what you mean, but I'm also being serious in that there really was no building. Like so I will start with Rosa and Mofe's apartment. So Rosa and Mofe's apartment, Chuko as Chuko was writing the script, Arie felt that Chuko, the characters that Chuko was creating felt very inauthentic. And Chuko, literally Arie challenged Chuko to be like, go to these areas and see what they look like, see what they feel like, see how they're living. So Chuko went to an area, Mushin, which is where both Rosa and Mofe's apartments are. And he would just keep going and visiting and visiting and visiting. And he gained the trust of these people. And that was the start, really, of our film. Chuko's work over a year before production, he was doing that. And then what happened is he ended up renting 2 rooms for the production that our production designer came in and brought elements to those rooms, but she did not build those rooms. Those rooms were already built and in the areas in which we were done. Then the rest of it was just like, in large part, was the production team and the location managers and some of the work that Chuko and Arie had done both together and separately in kind of building out the world, especially for like the Rosa part. Like a lot of the wealthier areas were places like and contexts that both boys and or their family and or the Guardian GDN studios had access to that we used. And then for some other parts of the world, it was our locations managers who helped us get those things. But everything that you see is in fact a part of the Lagos fabric of life. There was nothing built. There was no sets built. There was nothing truly designed. Like we furnished places to our liking, but everything else was already existing. Like Tomiwa's apartment, or not Tomiwa's apartment. The guy that Roses ends up dating, that was an apartment that was literally across from the boys for someone that they knew for a long time. And even the artwork that you see in the back, I think is either their families or the person's apartment that we went into. So yeah, everything was really kind of authentically and organically kind of provided, but there are no sets built. And that's why it feels the way it does. And we had an excellent production designer, to be honest, Taisa Malouf.
You know, since Chuko's not here, I'm going to ask you something that you can feel free not to answer, but can you objectively tell us some of the things that you think, you know, sort of before all of that research happened, where maybe sort of didn't feel right, that got better as you sort of, as that development process happened, like in real time by going there and living there?
That is such a Chuko and Arie question, because they were really, that authenticity, by the time I got the script, and this is a rarity for me, it just felt like a fully realized world. The changes that had happened or needed to happen was that we needed to cut certain locations. And so that's the only thing that we really did. But as it relates to the authenticity, that's something that they had hashed out over, I don't know, the 5 or 6 years Chuko was writing the script. So it predates me. So that's the only reason. Trust me, if I could, I would answer it, but I can't.
Oh, that's totally fine. By the way, I just remembered, I promised Gwen from the American Cinematheque that I did want to say that we're both planning to do big screen presentations of the film, and because obviously we screened it virtually in the context of Nollywood and Hollywood, but the American Cinematheque is going to be doing a 35 millimeter print presentation.
Yes. I'm excited. You guys let me know what that like flyer looks like so I can post it on IG, because that's basically what I feel like my life has become.
Absolutely. So that is going to be September 28th, I believe, at 7 o'clock at the Los Feliz Theater. And Gwen, if that's incorrect, just update me in the chat, and I'll say that I'll correct myself, and then I'll work out with Janice Films for the USC screening at some point down the line. So that's. Oh, sorry, I lost your video, Melissa. Oh, and your audio. There you go.
That was weird. Okay, sorry, I'm back, but I heard you. Yes, September 28th, Cinematheque. You're talking to Janice, and actually Brian at Janice. Janet's amazing.
Yes.
Our national distributor, and they did tell us that. So I will not act like they didn't and go back to that email that they sent.
So tell us a little bit from a producer standpoint, what some of the biggest challenges were, you know, making, this is your first feature as a producer, right? Yes.
This is my very first feature as a producer.
On the added challenge of producing a feature film in another country. So
it was both producing a feature film in another country, because this particular country, because I had done some production work on the ground with my short and with Iroko TV, I felt a little bit more comfortable. And I think that's part of the reason why the boys brought me on. But I think it was also the part of shooting on cinema, which was super scary. And I had no process was. So doing that in a country that didn't have development houses was also terrifying as a first-time feature, or as a first-time producer.
I think you solved that, by the way.
So Arie, funny enough, Arie was as a student at the time of making this film. And so that he had been working, he was, and by student, I say that loosely, actually. He hadn't graduated yet, but he was out of like the kind of day-to-day programming of like school. But he had basically been able to use some resources that he gotten with Kodak to, and had been building a relationship with them and working on cinema exclusively for 18 months, almost 2 years, prior to us getting on set. And so because of that, he was able to craft a deal with them where we would essentially get the film developed in New York. Now, on my end, as a producer, what I had to do was I had to ensure that basically the film got to them without being scanned. And that's actually kind of this lengthy process. So, but figuring out that process was difficult. I think as a producer also, people really weren't used to certain types of films being made by Nigerians and or Anglophone Africans, period. And so, especially stateside, like between Nigeria and the US, they don't really have funding that enables a first-time feature like this to be creative. And so you're normally working with equity investment. And we just happened to luck out on that. Like finding funding was incredibly difficult because if you're thinking about art house African films, you're traditionally thinking about the French, like Francophone African director, right? And all of that funding is coming through Europe. And that funding pipeline is anywhere from 2 to 3 years because you're going through a lot of European institutions. And so that was also logistically pretty much a nightmare. What ended up happening is Arie ended up talking to a family friend who happened to be Toke Ibru, who runs The Guardian. They were looking to start a film studio and kind of move from news media to other forms of media. And this was going to be their launch pad. And so they stayed, as we say, 10 toes down the entire time of our production. It's like, you know, the budget grew and like the idea and size of what we would need grew. They kept going with us and gratefully so. And that was something that we figured out. And then there was just like the on the ground logistics. Like we had a producer kind of back out, a line producer back out last minute. Luckily, Bose Oshin, who is a major producer in Nigeria, was able to come on and kind of bring her team that really kind of helped run the production day to day along with me. And so, yeah, like there were a ton of logistical problems, but as each problem came, you kind of figured out a way to solve them, I guess. But those were kind of the major things that we came across.
Can you talk about, because Nigeria does have such a large industry now,
Yeah.
elements of that industry you did tap into, if there was, if the actors in the film are particularly a part of what we think of as Nollywood, or if you went outside of that for casting?
So for casting, it was everybody, for the most part, everybody in some way, shape, or form is working in Nollywood because it's such a prolific part of the Nigerian film industry. But we actually did, through Lala Akindoju, we actually did get a number of heavy hitters in terms of some of the actors, Nigerian actors, and we were able to get in the crew as well, through Bose, and then also our co-producer, Adetukumbo Sangodoyin. So for this production, only our department heads were like transported, if you will. Like 85-90% of the actual crew was Nigerian born and bred, and all of the actors, save for one, two of them were from the UK, which was Tamiwa, Edun, excuse me, and Jude, who is the main character who plays Mofe. But yeah, so all of our I would say crew is working in Nollywood, and or is Nollywood adjacent. Some people came from theater, like, so the woman who plays Mofe's sister, who ended up passing, she is somebody who, while in Nollywood, some Nollywood stuff, does a lot more theater. Same thing with Toyin, who plays Vincent, and Rita Edwards. Rita Edwards does a little bit of both. Rita Edwards is Mofe's mother-in-law. She is both a theater and a Nollywood actress, but yeah.
I'm curious, as someone who grew up watching a lot of Italian cinema, as you can tell by the posters, and I believe Janice has the rights to at least one of these films. So
Yeah.
uh, the um, the emergence of films in the 40s and 50s, like Umberto D or Bicycle Thief, things that really represented a very realistic sort of day-to-day reality, caused kind of a stir in Italy, and of course, neorealism has been applied to your film as well,
Mhm.
as being a kind of upholding this great tradition in cinema of
Mhm.
sort of transporting you into the lives of people in a way that only cinema can, to sort of allow you to empathize and share in that experience. And I'm curious how that, because this film really does such a beautiful job of allowing you to share in their lives, how that's been received by Nigerian audiences versus, say, the international art houses. And, you know, obviously in Berlin it was a very big success. Like, how has that experience been different?
I don't think it's been so. I guess I would say, yeah, in some ways it's been different, but it's like the difference between, say, if the Yankees win in New York versus like nationally. Like you're a fan of the Yankees, but you live in Texas. Like you're proud of them because you're a fan, but it's different when you're in New York and you're just like, that's my team, that's my people. Like there's a level of ownership. And I think what's been great is that Chuko said something where when we premiered in Nigeria, he was like, Nigeria Twitter didn't kill us, but it was coming out right around the time like theaters were just opening back up because of COVID and they were 50% capacity. But that we really wanted to ensure that we started home first. And I think what's been really incredible is how the kind of Nigerian community and African community, the pride in the film has grown. And that is a natural pride of something that both belongs to you and is representative of you. And nobody can really give that to you. And I think when we talked to Janice, and this is something that they were truly great about hearing us with, is that, I think that international art house lovers are very different audiences than Black audiences, and especially Nigerian audiences, where an art house audience is like any kind of art audience in that they are trained to listen and observe. There's a very lean back experience, like not entertain me, but provide me with what I am discovering and what I should be learning and or taking in. Whereas it doesn't matter what type of film it is. For a Black audience, they're looking at something and they're like, is this good or is this not good? Does it resonate with me? So my favorite screening was Washington, D.C., where you could hear the gasps, excuse me, of like these Black audience members and how engaged they were with us afterward. We were like, had this hour-long like discussion afterward. And I would say the same for Arie, but it was with Philly. And I couldn't go for a work engagement, but he was like, it was the most engaged audience. And like, that's what it is. And like, even as the film kind of continues to grow and continues to like travel, Nigerian audiences, as Nigerian people and African people, potentially are more and more engaged with the journey and happier for us, and more prideful. So I think that in some ways it's just like that lean in versus lean back engagement, where it's like for some people we're the hometown kids, and then for some people it's like this is a great film that I enjoyed, and was very new for me to experience. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Do
Okay.
you think the three of you will continue making films in Nigeria, or is your next project, first of all, I mean, I don't know if you've even moved on to your next project. Uh,
I I'm doing a documentary called Dusty and Stones. That's very different from this. First of all, it's a documentary. But second of all, it's about two Swaziland country singers. Chuko and Arie are, they just got repped. I'm very proud of them. I try not to tell them to keep their egos, in check, but I'm very proud of them. They just got repped. And so I'm excited to see what's going to come out. But they are doing, they're thinking about doing a film around musicians in Nigeria that's kind of very neorealism, I think. And then Chuko is developing, oh my God. Chuko is developing Virginia Woolf's novel, Mrs. Dalloway. But instead of 1920s London, doing it in 2020 Nigeria. And very much being representative of, I think, a wealthy class of people and what that looks and feels like. So I'm excited to see that. And then they might have some other projects on the works, but, and then also Arie works at a company right now as the kind of creative producer, man of many hats, for Black Tag, which is basically this era's new BET in terms of like content creators and providing like Black content creators with a space to showcase their stuff and get the returns that they so rightfully deserve. So that's what they're doing. I'm also doing another film that'll be in development, that's currently in development, called In My Father's House, and a television series called Fever, based on the story of Little Willie John. So I'll be back and forth between Nigeria and the States in terms of the stuff that I'm creating. But the guys are specifically, I think, when you do get to creating stuff in Nigeria.
I have to say, I just got really excited for the Nigerian Mrs. Dalloway. Can't wait.
No, it's going to be, I'm sure that their spin is going to be like Virginia Woolf is like maybe Chuko's favorite author. Definitely top 5, top 3. So I do think that is going to be something that's done meticulously and with such thought, because it's something that he himself has read with rigor for many years.
We just have a couple of questions from the audience, and I just want to remind everyone, you can just, if you have anything you want to ask, put it in the Q&A box. So Derry is asking about shooting outdoors and not having, or asking if you had any problems with the area boys in Legos.
Can you guys? Okay, cool. So only on one, so we had an excellent production manager. His name's Jude. And while Chuko and Mushin, we had a locations manager who was actually a property manager there. And he helped manage the area boys, maybe for the first couple of days. But by the time we were on that set, our production manager, Jide, really took hold of those relationships, and just was like, he became the go-to for them. And so that really helped us with that. The only time I think we had any real issues with area people was when we were shooting in Obalonde, and we were shooting that sunset scene where you're looking down and like you're looking at Mofe kind of sell his wares. That was a particularly tough scene because we were doing it at a time and in an area where it was close to the time when the Muslim community does prayers. So like that was a little bit touchy, but that was the only time. Every other time we really were able to effectively manage it early on and like get ahead of it. So I will say that was like pretty great.
Okay, so this question is from Brian, asking about the choice for having the character speak English and having Jacob Alexander for the role that he's in.
So Jacob Alexander actually is a friend of Chuko's. He worked on God, I can't remember the boys didn't always work together as like writer, as like director, two co-directors. They actually did a short that Jacob Alexander was the star in, and Chuko just ended up staying very close to him. And so because of that, he kind of was like, he knew he wanted somebody Lebanese to play the role, but like American who was not used to the system, but through his friends was getting fast caught up, if you will. And that's kind of what you see in that whole exchange. And so that's really what happened with that. As it relates to Jacob Alexander, or speaking English, that's what you asked. I think that, like, quite frankly, some of it was just making sure we were making a story that was like viable and accessible to other people. I think that, and then the other thing was like, there's a lot of pidgin English that's spoken across like Lagos and Nigeria. And so I think that the boys are Yoruba, but their mother's Igbo. I think they probably know maybe a little bit more Igbo or just as much Igbo as they do Yoruba, but they didn't want to make any character any one thing just because they knew it was their first time out, and they wanted to make something that was at least a little bit more globally accessible. Mm-hmm. And afterward have the opportunity to like really, once filmmakers and audiences learn to trust and love their work, really start going in deep language wise. But I think that's, and I could be wrong, but I think that's one of the main reasons why they chose to have them speak English.
Okay, this question's from Ike with the film's further success after getting added to Criterion, it has become more popular with Nigerians since its not so successful theatrical run. Will there be? Oh, will there be an? Well, so if you want, wait, let me just get the rest of this. Will there be another chance for Nigerians to see it again soon?
Yes, I think so. I know that our Nigerian, our EP is obviously GDN, and they want to do a secondary run. But I think they are going to be doing more kind of private screenings. So I don't know in theater again, especially given like how tough kind of the Nigerian landscape can be. And I also think that like there are only one or two distributors, and you kind of have to prove yourself out of the gate, and or it's harder for them to kind of push films like this. So I think some of that has to do with a lack of opportunity and maybe kind of desire to want to push films like this. The combination of those things makes it so that we probably didn't have a run that was like successfully numerically, financially in Nigeria the first time around. But I do think that we are, from the feedback we got from audiences at home, we are really enthused and excited. And if there are opportunities to maybe even do one-off screenings for like larger public, we'll try and figure those out, I guess. Like, because it does seem like people are discovering it after it's been out of theaters in Nigeria specifically.
Yeah, so this is what I was really fascinated by earlier when we were talking about the internal external validation, of a movie, because it's very clear to me that this film is a masterpiece, and it's sort of sometimes it takes a while for that sort of circling back,
Yeah, that's 100%. Takes a
for that sense of like, oh wait, this was really special, and I didn't go to see it, and now everyone's saying it's great, and I missed that opportunity. Like, put it back in theaters,
Yeah. So, no, and that's been great and also tough. So I think it's to Ike's question. I don't want to lie and tell you like we're gonna do it. It's gonna be tomorrow. I really don't know what those plans are. I know it's something that we've discussed as a team, but I think it's something that we are still actively trying to figure out. But hopefully, at least be able to do something by end of year, just because that's a great time for in season for when a lot of people return.
Mm. There's one more, and I'm going to paraphrase this a little bit. The question is, I'm impressed at the level of detail in your credits. The insurance line stood out. Was that really necessary? And the reason I want to ask this question is I am often curious about how like everyone now seems to get a credit in a movie, like the catering company, et cetera, et cetera. And I am curious if that's a courtesy or a contractual thing. Like if you're getting things in exchange for a credit in a movie, like how does that work?
So I think it's funny that people think the insurance line stood out, because your production insurance is like actually supposed to be traditionally credited, but we don't ever see that in Nigerian films. And we did our credit list based on like international standards for the most part, or we tried to. And so most companies, it's contractual. So like Technicolor, like Panavision, all that stuff is like, yes, we will use your work, and also you better tag us at the back of this. The end. that literally is what happens. Yeah. You're supposed to, when you do these international films, you're supposed to tag everybody. That's why credits are so long. That's why our credits are so long. We were going international standard. I don't know what to tell you. And I will say one of the insurance providers that we have, both were Nigerian, but the second one that came on, he was brilliant. He was, again, a family friend of like Arie, and I just loved working with him because he made insurance so much, like he made it so transparent. And then I was like, oh, okay, like, and so I just credited him. I don't think he knew he was going to get credited. I don't think he knew his company was going to get credited, but that I did because I was like, that was deserved based on what he was able to provide me with in terms of knowledge and just like discounts and everything else. But everybody else is contractual.
So, hang on. I think we got one more. Okay. So this is a question from Maceo. We have a Nigerian script that we're going to film in Nigeria. What are the advantages to filming, and what exposure would a film get?
Hold on. Literally, Arie just was just texting me. Sorry. Hold on one second. So can you ask the question again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Maceo, I'm not totally sure I get it either. So I'm just going to bring you over and make you a panelist for a minute. Hang on. There's two of you. Sorry. So give me a second here, Maceo, because I want to let you raise your hand. Give me 1 second to let you do that. All right. Raise your hand, and I'll bring you over. Raise your virtual hand. Oh, Monica. This is Monica. All right. Okay, so I'm officially bringing over Monica. And Monica, you don't necessarily have to turn on your camera. We'd love to see you, but you can just turn on your microphone if you want. Or maybe I have to like ask them to unmute. Hang on.
Also, okay, how about now?
Yeah. Go for it.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. So we have a script that is a Nigerian film, and we're here in America. Of course, we're in California and Arizona, and we're looking to shoot the film in Nigeria. And the question was, what do you think the advantages of shooting the script in Nigeria versus, maybe filming in the United States?
That's a very broad question, and not one I can answer based on the knowledge I have, only because if it's a film, like shooting a film in Nigeria versus the United States is huge. Like that's a huge disparity. So I just need you to help me.
Oh, okay. Well, you mentioned too that, there's a lot of exposures, with Nigerian films now. And the whole key was, we were looking to say, how can we shoot parts here, or just filming the whole thing in Nigeria? So as far as the whole.
That's the first thing. Is it a Nigerian story?
It's a Nigerian story, correct.
What's the story about? Give me the log line.
Oh, it's a story about a father who is a teacher at a university, and his daughter is killed. And after his daughter's killed, he goes to the school and poses as a student to figure out who has killed his daughter. So and so the film is going to be broadcasted there. That's kind of the gist of it. So
okay. Father is killed. Sorry, I'm like also trying to navigate.
Oh, that's okay. I know it's still being developed, and there's some final, there's some final edits that need to be made. But basically, it's a revenge story, and so the person
basically the Damon story that's happening right now, or that isn't revenge. That is just him trying to track down the truth. This is revenge in that daughter's killed, so he goes to Nigeria to try and do what? I'm gonna ask a question, and don't get offended. Is the father white?
No, this is all Nigerian characters.
All Nigerian characters. Okay, great. Because I was like, you don't want to start no story with some white dude going to get in the middle of Nigeria. Nigerians will boo you. Black people boo you. Don't do it. Again, I don't think you can. It's really hard to substitute Nigeria for anywhere else. I still give thank God to the Avengers, knowing how much money how much money Disney has, and the fact that they substituted Legos for the Atlanta for Legos. You can tell. I can tell. I'm no. And y'all could have spent whatever million y'all had to get these 3 or 4 characters in this and do whatever you was gonna do. That would have been great for the industry. You could have figured it out. And that's Disney. So yes. I think that if you're going to substitute, I think it depends. I think the answer, because I don't want to take up everybody's time, but I think the question depends on a number of things. One of them being what's your budget? The other being, what's the level of expertise with the team? Find the right kind of producer. Like I said, Bose Oshin is, and I think her sister's a producer too, or maybe her sister's just a writer director. Bose and Tope, they're the Oshins are literally producing royalty in Nigeria. So yeah, and
the scriptwriter is from Nigeria. So and that's probably the key.
Yeah. I would say there are a number of reasons, decisions you need to make on whether or not you actually shoot it in Nigeria. But if you're doing a revenge story in Nigeria and you want to have this man going to different places and Legos, you probably gonna feel the difference. That's just the way I'm thinking about it in my head with just the log line, just again in my head. There's going to be some level of discovery of him going and figuring out and getting a sense of the landscape. That's always happens in these revenge movies where it's first he gets oriented while we as the audience gets oriented. Then he moves from location to location. That can be dark. Those locations can be dark rooms. So you don't need to do those in Legos, right? But interiors, the movements of the setup of him getting acclimated, that does need to be done in Nigeria. That's just
okay.
Now again, it does depend on how much money you have. If you're looking for tax credits, you're in Arizona and where? Texas?
California.
Cali's expensive. That's why people started going out of Cali anyway. Arizona, I don't know what their tax credits are. Nigeria has no tax credits, period, point blank. So then you can start looking at place you can look to substitute as SA. You get post-production credits there. That's the only place in Africa that I know that's happening, even though I know Kenya and parts of Northern Africa are trying to do the same right now, the MENA regions. And yeah, that's all the free advice I'm gonna give you.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
All right, cool.
Monica, I'm going to move you back over.
Okay.
Sorry.
Anybody questions?
Melissa, this has been so great to talk to you, and I really hope that we can have you come visit us at USC and at the American Cinematheque.
I'd love that.
I wanted to invite Gwen and Ose to just jump on. Gwen from the American Cinematheque, Ose from O2A Media. I have a little promo, a video for Nollywood and Hollywood 2020 that I'll play right at the end, but I just wanted to get everyone on board to say thank you and how lovely it's been to have you here.
Yes, thank you so much, Melissa. It was so interesting, and we're happy to be showing a 35mm print from Janus at the Los Feliz Theater in Los Angeles on September 28th at 7 p.m. The tickets will be on our website, available for everyone by Monday morning, the latest.
Yes, everybody go see it or tell your friends. It's beautiful on 35mm. If you thought it was great on digitally, trust me. And we worked really hard to get that 35mm.
It's unique. It's going to be beautiful.
Okay, so I want to thank everyone for joining us for these 2 days. Thank you to the filmmakers, for the audiences and fans, and especially joining us on this Saturday. I know there's so much stuff people can be doing, so we thank you for that. I want to thank Alex and USC Cinema for being a great partner in this. Gwen Deglis at the American Cinematheque also for being a great partner and just giving the world a chance to see Nigerian culture, film, and art. So we're coming back hopefully in 2022, spring of 2022. We're going to hopefully be live in person. Hopefully you join us. We usually make it a big party. So we hope to do that, and we'll communicate the date soon. So follow us on our Instagram page and on what's the other thing? On our website. I think our Instagram is Nollywood in Hollywood, LA. And if you want to be part of Nollywood in Hollywood, get in touch with us. We need partners and some Nigerian groups. Everybody should get in touch. So thank you so much to everybody. And again, thank you to a big contingent that came out of Jamaica for this. Yeah, see you in spring. Bye, Alex, Gwen, everybody.
Thank you, Elsie, so much. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Alex. And thank you, the audience, for being with us.
And now a 45-second promo for next year.
Something great is happening this month in LA, Los Angeles, and it's called Nollywood in Hollywood.
A weekend of screenings of some of the best Nollywood films in an event billed as the inaugural Nollywood in Hollywood.
Hi guys, my name is AY, and of course this is me inviting you to join me for the virtual premiere of Merriment 2 at Nollywood in Hollywood Festival.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, we're on our way to Los Angeles.
Nollywood in Hollywood is back, bringing a festival of African film to Tinseltown.
Worth the price of admission just to see Ose dancing. I really hope to see everyone there next year. I can't wait. And thank you all so much. Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.